All right. Welcome to the Double Radio Gamescast, episode number 70. We're going to be talking about guilty pleasure games again. As always, I am your host, Ryan. I'm joined by my lovely dynamic duo of co-hosts, Alex and Wyatt.
Not only is this Guilty Pleasures to Electric Blue Glue, it's also Take Two.
Yeah,
we're not going over that bit of news again, are we?
No, we're not. So, for context for people listening to this episode, we streamed about 5 minutes of our discussion before this, and we talked about Activision Blizzard's terrible situation.
It was so uncomfortable, it made Discord uncomfortable.
Yeah, it made Discord stop audio.
We all talked about it, but
we'll talk about it again next week because I have a feeling this isn't the last we're gonna hear about this. So, for a quick overview, basically the situation is even worse. And Activision Blizzard is having a real rough time with treating people like human beings, regardless of their gender. So,
as a quick sort of one note add on to that, I don't know the exact name, but they were also there was also some press about them hiring the notorious lawyer who crushed the game industry trying to unionize.
Yeah, they did. So that is, I think that's one of their corporate lawyers. I don't think it's that they hired them recently. I did read about that, but I'm not 100% positive about that information. So we'll report back on that next week if there's more lawyery things to talk about. The gist of it is that we were just talking about is Bobby Kotick sent out an email to address things and said that there's going to be harsh readjustment and support in place. However, seeing the history that Activision Blizzard has and the fact that there's like almost no way this could have been happening without Kotick knowing, like it just isn't feasible that Bobby Kotick didn't know about this stuff. So we're not sure how much is going to happen. Presumably a lot, because this is a lawsuit from the state of California. So something has to change. It's just a question of how quickly and if it's going to be an adequate response.
I mean, it's the necessary step really is not just getting rid of like the people who are doing these things, but it's also getting rid of the people who maybe didn't do anything but allowed these things to knowingly happen in the first place. Like
it's also about like creating a company culture that is welcoming to people that would encourages people to stand up.
Welcoming to people.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying.
I
mean, there are plenty of people in this situation where like even if they didn't, do anything, they still let these things
if they
happen.
knew about it and said nothing, it's a similar problem.
They're just as guilty. So it's a matter of not just getting rid of the people who are specifically like doing those things. It's the people, like I said, it's the people that allow those things to happen. That's where the change comes in.
I mean, I think the biggest issue with the Activision Blizzard stuff is that so many of these people that were allowing these things to happen were in positions of power and leadership areas, stuff like recruiters, where the oversight on them probably wasn't adequate enough to know everything that was going on and didn't really care enough to do anything. Because obviously, like, the people underneath these people aren't going to have the ability to get them fired, right? Unless something like this lawsuit comes out. So I think that's the biggest issue, is the fact that it doesn't seem like it's the majority of regular employees. It seems like a lot of people that have been at the company for a long time have been in comfortable positions, and those people that were doing, like we talked about last time, the cubicle crawls, stuff like that, just really gross behavior. Yeah, it's a bad situation, but definitely in huge support of the employees that participated in the walkout on Wednesday. So glad that happened, and I'm glad that there is a lot of public outcry from employees saying that the response has not been adequate and that more needs to be done. Especially,
and,
not
that this, I don't think we've mentioned this, but not that this excuses anything, but it was like paid leave for the walkout, which was, I guess, a nice gesture. Not that it really like solves anything, but
Yep, definitely.
There's that, I guess.
All right. Now
I do want to end
the
news section on something. I do want to end the news section on something more positive.
We have something positive to end the news section on. Something very positive.
Because I did want to talk about the Halo technical alpha.
I want to talk about that right now. Let's bring that up
Yeah?
now. I got our
Okay.
positive end note, but we're not going to end on the Halo stuff, but we definitely want to talk about it. So go ahead.
Okay, good. Because I was not one of those people that was available to try out the alpha, unfortunately. But after looking into a lot of it online, other than some technical issues of like connectivity and that sort of thing, it seems like it's being really well received. Now, obviously, we have to temper expectations because this is a technical alpha where people are playing on only 3 maps and against bots. So, it's not giving the greatest. It's not giving the greatest impression of what the game will be like, but it's something. I think it's enough for people to kind of get a good kind of first look, right? And it's been going over really, really well. I think what people have been saying is that they've 343 has finally found a spot where they can take a game that feels a lot like Halo, but then modernize it in a way that doesn't make it not have that classic feel to it anymore. If it finally seems like they found the good balance, which is what they've been looking for since day one. And yeah, I mean, obviously not too much to say just because I haven't taken part personally, but I'm really glad to see that like public opinion on it's starting to turn around. So that's good.
Yep. All right. And I do think even though it is like a limited alpha, the fact that there's gameplay happening, and that's where a lot of people's concerns were, aside from the visuals, is how it would feel. I think even the limited modes, limited player team size still gives a really, really good indication of how the game is playing, which is great to see.
I'm sure that once they get those things settled, they'll maybe up it before release.
Yep.
Yeah. And obviously, again, we can't judge how good the game is going to be off of a technical alpha because it gives us even less to go on than like a beta or a demo. But it's good that we're seeing.
It's a sign of progress.
Signs. Yeah.
Which was always the concern with Infinite, is that we weren't seeing that progress.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just weren't seeing a lot of things that were giving us hope. But I think I'm just so happy that people are finally starting to turn around, because I was always like, I think Infinite's gonna be not terrible, but I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, because even thinking back to us watching the initial Infinite gameplay trailer reveal like thing they did, we were negative on the visuals, but we still thought the game looked pretty fun. So,
yeah. Well, you and I did. We were always down with what they were showing off gameplay wise, but obviously, like visuals and technical aspects was
is the stuff that concerns everyone.
Plus, a lot of the music tracks they've released for it have been awesome, and you can actually listen to them on Spotify if you want. There's like maybe 3 or 4 music tracks from the score that they've released, and they've all been just great. So there's that as well.
Yep, definitely. All right. So slightly better news. We got a new studio being formed. I don't know if you guys have heard about the studio called That's No Moon.
Yep.
The studio's had some publicity in the last few days. So it is a studio formed of a bunch of devs from, I believe, Naughty Dog and Infinity Ward that are creating a new AAA game. There's been some cool media reels going out. Lots of fun people are here. So very excited to see what this studio comes out with. They've said they want to have the team around 100 by next year, and are aiming to do actual AAA games. So I would like to see one of the studios that comes out and says they want to do AAA actually succeed at it, because I think there's been a lot of small-scale studios, like around 20 people, that are saying they're trying to make these AAA quality experiences, but have had issues. The thing that I'm liking here, and especially with Microsoft as well, they have a few studios that have been formed on the back end out of other devs that are forming those new AAA studios, and I'm excited to see what these new creative teams come out with. That, and just having the rep of Naughty Dog and Infinity Ward veterans is good. And the fact that one of the CEOs is former head of PlayStation Visual Arts Group. So, some top dogs here.
It seems like a good collection of folks there, for sure.
Yeah, I went to go check on their careers page. They have some very specialized roles. that they're looking for, which is interesting.
Yep, definitely.
Now, I'm also going to throw out. I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I'm just going to throw out there that maybe these guys are Star Wars fans. Now, I know that sounds crazy.
It does sound crazy, Wyatt.
It sounds insane, and I hate to revert everything back to Star Wars as we always do, but I'm just saying, they're giving off some Star Wars fan vibes.
We are a Star Wars podcast, and it's no longer exclusive to EA, right? The license.
Well, technically, it's
it's in a weird position. I think nothing else can release until like 2022. It's some weird legalese.
Yeah, we're not going to be seeing anything from anyone else for a good.
Well, perfect time for them to start working on a game.
Yeah, totally possible. All right. Are you all ready to talk about the greatest game of a few years ago? I think 2019 was the year. 2018 maybe.
So prepared, Ryan.
Outer Wilds has finally revealed that there is DLC, an expansion to Outer Wilds called Echoes of the Eye coming out. Now, I don't think either of you two has played this game yet, unless I'm wrong.
I have not, but I've had it spoiled for me, and I'm wondering how there can be DLC.
That is the same thing a lot of people are thinking. I'm very happy to see that more is happening. From the little bit we do know, this likely seems to be somewhat standalone in that it's focusing on a different area or a different culture than the main game does. So you're not dealing with the same situation as the main game. Obviously trying to avoid spoilers because Outer Wilds is definitely a game that's best played without those spoilers. Yeah, very excited to see that there's more coming out of that studio. All right, are you all ready to talk about guilty pleasure games?
No, I'm not.
Well, great, because we have one more major thing to say. We have our own news this time. We've got news for the channel, the podcast.
Oh my god.
There's a little, for the past like 2-ish months, we've been staring at our Twitch analytics and been like, hey, we should be an affiliate by now. And guess what? Twitch finally agreed with us and has gifted us with the beautiful sub button on our Twitch channel over at twitch.tv/megamatch. Check it out. We have a sub button now.
Oh
it
my
exists.
God.
And we also have our first sub. A0 Tempest.
What?
So, normally I won't be talking about subs or anything or chat on the actual podcast. We don't tend to talk about it unless they mention something that we completely forgot. But seeing that we just got our sub button, it's a good call out for our first subscriber. And feel free to go to the Twitch channel and check it out. Wyatt and I also sometimes stream It Takes Two. It's not just the podcast. The time. When we can figure out the schedule.
And
that Ace Combat
possibly, I already said this in our Discord, Ryan. I'm gonna say it again. We should really stream the Back 4 Blood beta.
Oh yeah,
next week.
Yeah, that's not for another 2 weeks though. So
another 2 weeks, but still, we should.
Yeah, we want to look at the Back 4 Blood stuff as soon as that is actually available, but it is not in our hands yet. So
right, it's like the 12th, I think.
Yep. All right, now we can properly talk about guilty pleasure games. But before
still not ready.
We talk about them, specifically, Wyatt, you can sit there and stew for a moment if you want to. We need to first make a guilty pleasure game.
Oh.
We are being given... We have been hired as executives over at Omega Force and Koei Tecmo. They have told us they're making the next bombastic Warriors game. They're going hard. We're putting all the Warriors trappings into this. Multiple characters, multiple move sets. We're going to mow down thousands of enemies at a single time. It's going to be great. However,
what's going to make this... Oh, sorry.
The stopping point with this, they don't know what franchise is going to be a Warriors game. So I need you two to give me what franchise this Warriors game is going to be and why.
Got it.
Do you have a question, Alex?
What makes this a guilty pleasures game? Why would I not feel good about admitting this to the general public?
Guilty pleasure doesn't mean you don't like admitting it. We're using it as the term to mean you kind of feel a little bit... If you're playing this game and there's like another big game that just came out that you want to play, you might feel bad that you're playing this game because there's like this other game that came out, right? Say God of War
you
just
admitting
came out.
it's you admitting that the game the game you're playing is garbage, but you enjoy
Well,
it.
not necessarily garbage, but just like it's a perfect 7 out of 10. You know, it's good enough that you want to play it, but by all rights, you probably should be playing something else.
Okay.
Right? It's not bad enough that you want to stop, but it's good enough that's keeping your attention. But then you can see God of War in the corner just looking at you, and you feel guilty that God of War is not being played right now.
I mean, I have the perfect franchise for a Warriors type game. Not that it would necessarily make it a great guilty pleasure, but I have the perfect match.
Yep.
You got to go with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, that would be a match made in heaven for
That'd be a good
Warriors
one.
game.
You've even got the warfare aspect down. That's a thing Warriors games often forget, is that you need to have the continent-spanning war for you to go fight things with.
And here it's perfect.
You can finally be the Fire Nation attacking.
Look, I can't tell you how many times on this show I've said we need more Avatar: Last Airbender games.
We absolutely do.
It works for every single genre. Name a video game genre and it would be perfect for it. It doesn't matter.
Oh, that should have been our oh god, what was the episode when we made not the perfect game?
Are you saying that our Transformers most satisfying game ever is not good enough for you?
Oh no, I'm saying that is absolutely good enough for me. But if we were to form a studio, it would be the Transformers game and also Avatar: The Last Airbender with destructible environments.
Yeah, of course.
Imagine taking a chunk out of a building to throw at enemies.
I mean,
come on.
I mean,
tell me there would be a single thing stopping you from choosing Earthbender compared to any other thing.
The fact that it still isn't a thing makes me so sad.
There's plenty of prototypes.
It really does.
There are plenty of prototypes, but no big money studio is coming in with their Avatar games.
Because they're cowards.
I can now stop crying that there's no more Advance Wars games in the world, but I can keep crying that there's no good Avatar games in the world.
Especially recent Avatar games. We've got a few good oldies, but nothing new. And nothing with something as cool as destructible environments with earthbending would be. And you know what? Dynasty Warriors be the first franchise to do it.
I mean, again, pick any video game genre. Think of the weirdest, most obscure genre you could think of. It would probably work perfectly for it. It's perfect.
Yep. All right, Alex, what do you want for your Warriors game? What is your Warriors dream setting?
So I have two ideas. One they're both kind of out there, one of which is a little bit more mainstream. The first one I would say would be Ben 10.
Ooh.
Because also the only Ben 10 games I've played have been on the Wii and they've been bad.
Yep.
And I'd like something good where I can turn into aliens. The other thing was from, I don't remember if this was Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. But as we were talking about this, I had this flashback of a show that I remember watching a few episodes of, and I liked it, and then I could never find anything else of it again. Oh god, what was it? Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go.
Excuse me? Gesundheit?
Gesundheit! Oh, you beat me to it! You beat me to it!
Oh my god. It's this vague memory I have that's like if the Power Rangers were monkeys. And it's called Super Robot Monkey Team
Alex, I've seen this
Go.
Show. I've seen this, yeah. I completely blocked this from my memory. Oh my god. There were 4 seasons of it. And you know what? If you want to watch Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go, you can go watch it on Disney Plus right now.
No way!
I'm gonna have to do that after this episode.
Oh, wow. Could make a watch party out of that.
Look.
Oh, that's great.
I already know that mine has lost. What I wanted to pitch is I want either, it could be one of two things, because I think both would be good. The theming is either Monster Hunter or Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Warriors, right? Where you play as the monsters. All right,
Dude, like
you're
a
not
classic like Kaiju Warriors game would be pretty sweet, actually.
I want to see
picturing that in my head right now. That's awesome.
Because I want to be taking down like a city full of mechs, you know, just fighting all the mechs, all the other things coming at you. The commanders are like other kaiju, taking them all down, Godzilla style. That'd be great.
I'm kind of surprised. I mean, we're getting a what is it, a Cartoon Network game that's kind of like a Smash Brothers. I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten one. Nickelodeon,
yeah.
excuse me.
There's no excuse for you.
I am so sorry. No, there is no excuse. But I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten a Smash Brothers style game with like kaiju in it and stuff like that.
I feel like Smash Brothers style kaiju game wouldn't really get the perspective across.
I feel like that would be more suited if it was still sort of fighting game. The closest you could get would maybe be Soul Calibur.
Or, you know, Godzilla Destroy All Monsters.
Is that an actual
game? The Godzilla fighting game for GameCube that was really good.
Oh.
Yeah,
that
it's really good. It's not super competitive, but it is extremely fun. It is a classic that I want to see. I want that, but like with thousands of enemies on the screen, right? I want that Godzilla 2017 or whatever movie, but you are Godzilla, right? You're going through and tearing through everything. That'd be great. It'd be amazing.
I can imagine the controller shaking as you release your nuclear bomb breath.
What was that Incredible
HD
Hulk
Rumble
game that came out in like the early 2010s or something like that?
I think it was just called The Incredible Hulk.
I mean, there you go. You're a little bit smaller and you're a lot greener, but you know, there you go.
Still almost the exact same amount of destruction.
Can I melt buildings with my nuclear breath? Because I try every day and it doesn't work.
Aww.
No, but you have, as Tony Stark would put it, breathtaking anger management problems.
Of course. All right. We've made our games.
101 Radio, come for the content.
I think they are all too good to pick a winner, aside from obviously Avatar. So
obviously,
it's time to actually talk. Wyatt, are you ready this time? Are you good now? Are you happy to talk about your guilty pleasure games?
Sure. Just Ryan, just for you, it's fine.
Just from you were the one who requested this topic, Wyatt.
wait! I requested it the first time.
No, you requested it the second time.
I was okay with it the second time.
No, you were the one who put the message in chat. We could do guilty pleasure games.
And then we did the first one.
Turn on the cameras just
and
to
we
look
did the
in
first
Nope,
one.
the first one was like our 7th episode. We did that far before we even had the Discord set up.
I'm talking about the first.
Wow.
Okay, all right, fine. Then technically speaking, I'm talking about the second one. That was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You can't blame me for this one. This is completely out of my hands.
That's this one. You're having a Wyatt moment. It's okay. It's all right. We allow them here.
Me having a Wyatt moment? That doesn't sound like me.
We have the receipts. So I'm going to start us off by talking about a specific game that I've been playing a lot of recently. And that's Final Fantasy XIV Online.
Okay, we'll take a break. We'll go take another break. I'll be right back.
Oh, really, Wyatt? Really? You're going to like this one?
I'm sick to death. I'm sick of this game.
Until you play it.
Well, I'm here to listen to you, Ryan. I'm already sold on the idea.
All right. So, Final Fantasy XIV is an amazing game. It's not a guilty pleasure game, except for one thing. When I look at the fact that I still have main story to do, and I go and decide instead, I'm going to go power level my crafters. All right? So this game has a story for every single crafting discipline, of which there are like 10. And each of them has a story where you got to go do some inane stuff to prove to some dude that you're better than him. And you're worthy of everyone's joy and adoration, right? So you got to do that for everyone. But of course, I have no reason to be doing this right now when I still have main story to do on my like actual main, job where I'm fighting things. But no, I discover there's this little place called the Firmament where they do fun little mini games. And they also do this thing called the Ishgard Restoration. And there's a little guy you can talk to. And this guy teleports you to a dungeon. Except it's a dungeon just for gatherers. All you do in this dungeon is run around and mine rocks, hit trees, and fish. That's all you do in this dungeon.
Way.
You run around and you can do it as long as you want. You just mine rocks, hit trees, and fish.
Dude, they turned Animal Crossing into a real game.
And then you gain experience, you level your gatherers, and I have spent probably like 8 hours in the last week going to this dungeon and doing nothing but walking around the same set of floating islands and hitting trees, mining rocks, and gathering fish.
And that
Sounds
hasn't
exhilarating,
gotten the least
Ryan.
bit tedious.
Well, you see, they have this great little thing called the Aetherimatic Auger, where as you hit things, you level this little, you get this little gauge that goes up, and when it gets to one of its like 5 segments filled, you get to launch a bazooka at a monster that one-shots it and gives you a ton of loot.
Oh.
So they have somehow devised this perfect endorphin rush of you're running around doing this peaceful mining, and then your reward for doing this peaceful mining is getting a laser bazooka.
Are there monsters around you while you're doing this that you have to fight, or is it just
you
that,
don't have
and
to
then
fight them.
As soon as
No.
you get a gauge filled,
You don't fight them at all. They're there. They're wandering around, but you don't need to fight them until you get your bazooka and you can delete them. You just point it in their general direction, and they go away, and you get loot.
This is such a weird game, and I can't wait to try it.
It's incredible.
And by I can't wait to try it, I mean I am going to be half-heartedly doing the rest of this season of Destiny. Meanwhile,
Hey, it's an improvement over wholeheartedly doing.
Meanwhile, playing Skyrim again.
I mean,
That's
Skyrim
sneak
is
peek
always
into my
worth the
guilty
play
pleasure.
through.
Well, actually, I'm no longer doing that while looking at Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and God of War because I completed the story for both of those games.
There you go. Now you don't need to feel as guilty. You're still a little bit guilty, but not as guilty. But I feel very guilty that I have spent like 8 hours in the past week
Your
doing
Honor,
that.
League of Legends.
Oh, God. Don't remind me about League of Legends. That's a hellhole of a game. I have, however, felt very guilty this last week because I have this little game called Nier, just waiting for me to finish it. And I've been cracking away at it. I'm getting close, but
Would you say
I'm getting kind of near.
Would you say yeah? Yeah, would you?
I'm still pretty far from the ending.
I don't get
but
the joke. Can someone explain the joke to me? I don't get it.
Well, Wyatt, you see, the game is called Nier, and when you're close to something, you call yourself near to that thing. And I am near to probably the halfway point of that game.
Yeah, but those are two different things. Near is spelled differently than
Oh, it's
near.
been so close since you've explained a joke. Oh yeah,
I had to bring it back. I had to bring it back for one episode.
Ryan, I had to set you up for the play.
Yep.
Passed you the ball.
Great, good 1-2 3-pointer throw, something sports reference. All right.
We're a fun team here at 001.
This is what happens when Brett isn't here. We become completely unhinged. Normally, Brett has the crazy energy, and now we're all just absorbing it.
There's no one to keep us on track. Even the host has completely given up at this point.
Look,
I wouldn't say given up. We just got the sub button.
sometimes a little bit of insanity is all you need, and I think guilty pleasure games are the exemplar of that. Just like me spending 8 hours in the past week or so hitting rocks and trees so I can shoot a bazooka at monsters and get loot, which there's a second half to this. That loot doesn't really do anything aside from you then take it and then use your crafters to create useless items that you hand to a man to get experience. But also when you hand those to the man gives you a little sticker on a 5 stamp card. Think you're going to your sub shop and you're getting your stamps. If you get 5 stamps, you can scratch off that card and get a chance at a cool reward. All right? See what they do? They hook you. They keep you doing it because you want to get that cool little minion. And guess what? I got the cool little minion because I did 8 hours of it.
Ryan, I know you've been fishing. I know you've been fishing this game for a long time, but I think the real truth here is that you're the one You're the fish that's been caught in the hook.
Well, the game also has ocean fishing, which is an entirely separate instance dungeon-style content bit just for fishers.
See what I mean?
Now, you say there's a random chance with that card.
Well, it tells you the chance. So you have...
That gives me red flags. Is there bad luck prevention?
It is... The random chance is not very punishing. It's like the best reward, the worst percentage chance you have to get the best reward is 8%. So, like, you do like 10 of those things, and you can get as many as you want. All you got to do is craft the items, which is very easy because you get all the materials from the same spot 5 feet away. And then you go to the guy, you craft your items, you level up your things, and then you scratch off your tickets and you get cool things. It feels very, very rewarding in a good way because there's tons of cute little stuff that you can get. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that at all in level crafters, you could just go buy it on the market board from other players, but then you're giving other players money. So
the Warframe style market. Pass.
Well, no, this is like a proper auction house where you can just go and get what you want with your in-game currency like a normal person and not have to go to alternate websites and look around and find someone selling the item you need because you could just go, get it from the auction house, which isn't even an auction house. It's just people put things up for a certain amount of money and you just buy it like a regular game. Oh, look, Path of Exile has burned me. It has created many unfortunate situations at this point.
It was burnt. It was dousing itself in kerosene.
Look, I love Path of Exile, but the trade system in that game is horrible. All right, who else has a guilty pleasure game they want to talk about? Will I huddle into a ball and think about crafting?
I'll go. I'm both relieved and disappointed that Brett isn't here to talk about this, but I want to talk about Halo 5. The Halo game that almost everyone hates except for me. Halo 5's campaign is terrible. Sucks. Story sucks. Makes no sense. It's boring. And there's no split screen to speak of. It sucks. However, the multiplayer and the gameplay itself, in my opinion, is actually pretty good, and one of the biggest complaints other than the campaign is that it doesn't feel like a Halo game, which I understand for a lot of people that love Halo, that love that classic feel. It doesn't feel like classic Halo, and I get that, but for me, I'm a lot more lenient on it because the game came out in 2016, something like that, and also it's a completely different developer, made up of a lot of Bungie developers that wanted to keep working on Halo. I get that, but it is a different studio. So not only do you have a game that is so much that is being made in such a different time, you also have a different studio that wants to leave their own mark on a franchise that they've been given, right? And so I think it's kind of silly to expect things to say exactly the same. And in my personal opinion, and not everyone agrees with this, and that's fine, I think Halo 5 did a really good job of bridging newer FPS mechanics with like Halo's classic feel, because it feels like a lot of the changes that they made, at least to like the moment-to-moment gameplay, are an extension of Halo's combat and not something that's like completely different. Like, it doesn't feel like classic Halo. It feels like a modern take on Halo, like how Halo would have been made if it was made today. And that's kind of what I like about it. Is that it doesn't have that classic feel. I love that classic feel, but I think it's silly to expect a franchise to say exactly the same.
Yeah, I definitely, having finally been able to play a little bit of Halo 5 on not my Xbox, but a friend's Xbox, I think it plays pretty well.
Plays really well, especially for a console-only shooter. I think it plays.
I think my biggest thing with 5, and completely ignoring any semblance of the story or single-player stuff, because I have not touched that at all.
It's bad. Oh, dude, it's so bad. It's so bad.
Which is unfortunate, because that is generally like the reason I buy a Halo game is for the single-player stuff, and then I end up playing inevitably 100 hours of the multiplayer because it's really fun, right?
Yeah.
but it does matter to me, the single player. Unlike a lot of other franchises like Call of Duty, I don't really care that much about.
And not to say that I don't care about it. It's just I think there's a lot more to enjoy.
Well, like if a Halo game's multiplayer is good, it's not that awful. If the single player is not amazing, it's just it feels a little bit like a betrayal when the games have been so good at that for so long. And like even Halo 4, which is generally regarded as like pretty not as great as many of the other games, still has a fun ride for you, and it has the split screen is a big thing.
Yeah,
that's always the thing for me, is like I don't really care about the quality if I can play it split screen with a bud and actually enjoy myself a lot.
Makes it better. Makes it a lot better.
Yeah. But what I really felt with Halo is like I played Halo 5 and I just kind of ended up like, this doesn't really feel like Halo, and it feels more like Titanfall. And then I just wanted to go play Titanfall. Like I think that's my problem with every multiplayer shooter adding like dashing to an insane degree and like wall running, is that at the end of the day I'm just like,
which Halo 5 doesn't have,
but it does like move fast in a way that is very reminiscent of Titanfall, right? And is not as reminiscent of Halo games, which are generally a little bit slower paced. To me, but it didn't fill the niche for me.
It's faster, but I wouldn't say it's like, because I mean, I'm
not saying it's worse.
It's like a multiplayer shooter on like drugs. It's ridiculously quick, and again, the way I describe it is it's not. It doesn't have the classic Halo feel, but it has modern extensions onto it. Like a large part of any shooter, but especially with Halo, I feel like strafing is such a big thing, and I feel like they wanted to add on to that strafing by adding dashes, which again, you know me, add a dash to any video game and that's automatically going to make it better. But even besides, putting that aside, I think adding dashing, because like again, strafing is such a big thing in Halo's combat, and adding dashing onto it feels like kind of a natural modern extension to that. And there's so many little things that I love. Like I don't know if you came across any of this when you're playing, Ryan, but they have this great thing where you can, if you're in a vehicle, you can press one button and your guy automatically hops to a different seat in the vehicle, which
I think the quality of life stuff is much better, because that's the kind of thing where like you don't need to have the rough quality of life that like Halo 2 used to have, of like how to dual wield and how to set up all these different things. Especially in like the PC versions, if you don't take some time to set up your keybinds, it can be a little bit annoying to do everything.
Right.
So I definitely agree with that, but I do think I think what happened to me is like this is what makes 5 a perfect guilty pleasure game, is that it felt like it was striking this middle ground of it kind of lost its identity in the process, where it just kind of landed in this sort of generic shooter territory and less definitively Halo, whereas like Halo was always the like arena shooter with the hardest or the longest time to kill, and like you have a lot more options of how to, or not a lot more options, but you have a very simple move set, but you have a lot of like tactical routes to get to things, different vehicles and whatnot. And those tight corridors, which not tight quarters, but tight quarters, I think works really well. At least for that distinct Halo feel. Like I think a good example is like when we were playing Master Chief Collection, and there's all the different maps that still feel really, really great and very different. But I think starting to add everyone has those different movement options, to me makes it feel a little bit too fast for that identity that it has had for the past 15 years or so.
By taking out the armor abilities, you mean?
Well, I like armor abilities, but I feel like dashing, if it's a thing, should be a choice you have to make. Of like, I have dashing, but I don't have this other thing, right? Like the way sprint works in 3.
I've always felt like armor abilities are cool, but they don't. I never felt like they were really like, and this is a very like unpopular opinion, which is kind of the name of the game today. But I never felt like armor abilities really like felt all that connected with everything else. Like feels like you have your core loop. Oh, and I guess there's armor abilities. Like it never felt as integrated to me as they could have been. And so I'm more of a fan of how 5 does it, where everyone has the same abilities like from the outset, and you just have to focus on weapons.
Well,
because then it feels a lot more integrated.
Because this is where I think we're getting to like the modernization discussion of like why I think hero shooters are so popular right now is because of that diversity of how you really have these distinct roles. And I think armor abilities, and you're right in that they never really felt super tied into the core loop, but they did give that very distinct like sense of you had different things you could do than everyone else. And like, oh, if you've got hologram, you have this cool trick you can do of you have this really rapidly recharging ability that's not mechanically that useful, but can be helpful for a distraction. Or if you have like a jetpack, it recharges pretty slowly, but you can now get to areas that other players can't get to. And I think that creates a really interesting environmental situation of like having to wonder what your other players have access to. And when everyone has the same tool set, that starts to get a little bit less noticeable. I think that's the classic like why Team Fortress 2 has stayed around so long, is because you have all those different situations that can arise from the different characters and what they can do. And like armor abilities felt like a good way to do that without becoming a hero shooter.
There's a lady in my head who calls me Stud Muffin.
Yeah, but not to say either is like a bad approach. It's just it feels distinctly un-Halo when you have things like dashing and the constant movement.
That's almost what I like about it, though, because I'll go back to what I said when I first started talking about it, is that it's made, I mean, Halo, you know, the original Halo trilogy, it ended with 3, which came out in what, 2006, 2007? I can't remember.
Yeah, I want to say 3 was 2007. It might have been
something like that.
Somewhere between 6 and 8.
I mean, it's
2015. Like that, my bones turned to dust before.
Yeah, 2007. So we were on
2007. You know, Halo 5 comes out 2015 by a different studio that wants to make their own mark on the series. They don't want to just, you know, keep doing the same thing. They want it to be their own in some way.
Why a statement has never aged me so much as you saying Halo 5 came out in 2015. I did not know that game was 2015.
Am I right? It's like 2015.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's 2015.
I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark.
just don't think about it.
I'm sorry, continue.
Just don't think about it too hard. But I don't know. I just and look and you know, partially what I'm saying is proven wrong because you know, they struck a completely different balance of modern and classic Halo feel in Infinite, it seems like, and people are really enjoying that. So, you know, maybe what I'm saying doesn't really hold any water anymore. But I always like the balance that they struck, because especially with things like, for example, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, you aim down. You can aim down sights sort of with every gun now by holding left trigger. That feels too much like Call of Duty or other shooters now." The thing is that there's still like descoping, right? So you're never really relying, which is a very like Halo thing. It's part of like Halo's combat is descoping when you're hit, and that never went away in 5.
Yeah.
And so they still make some very smart decisions that still kind of ground it into that Halo foundation, but they're just adding a lot of modern things to it. It doesn't feel like a betrayal. It feels like we have to evolve the franchise. We want to make it, well, not have to, but we want to. Oops, I hit my microphone. But we want to. And sorry, I get so excited when I talk about Halo 5. We want to evolve the franchise, but we still want to keep those roots there. And personally, it's a different balance than what Infinite is striking, but I think they did a good job with 5. I think it's still one of my favorite multiplayers to go back to, honestly, just because I love the feel of it so much. Like it plays really good. Still.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like part of the beauty of video games. Is like you and I can have completely different opinions on this game while still recognizing that like it tried new things. Yeah. I think the best way to put it for me is that like when I get the itch to play Halo games, right? I think everyone who's played a Halo game and enjoyed them gets the itch. At some point, they'll go back and like, man, I really want to play Halo. Because it just feels different than everything else. 5, I don't think is capable of giving me that. And that's my biggest concern about Infinite, is I'm a little bit worried that like the addition of everyone having a grappling hook, as much as I love grappling hooks in games.
I don't think that's a thing in multiplayer. I think you have to pick it up, from what I understand.
Okay, if it's a thing you have to pick up, then I like that.
Yeah, because I was looking for it, because I saw someone use it, and it was like it was a little icon next to their grenade. but when they used it, it was gone. So I think it's like
So,
an armor
yeah, so maybe
ability.
it's like either a recharging ability or something like that.
I saw the icon go away completely. Didn't even recharge. So I do think it's some sort of armor ability. I could be wrong because again I haven't played it.
Yeah, I
but
think so long as they
was
give it
looking for
like the Pathfinder Apex Legends recharge or something like that, where it's a tool that you have but you can't use it all the time. I
Right.
think that would be a good balance. Where like that is the thing I think that kept armor abilities not from feeling too ridiculous, is that they had those cooldown times. Especially the movement ones always had like, as soon as they're used, you know you have a period of time where you are vulnerable, and that works really well to encourage like good, thoughtful use of them, which I think works really well. And I am confident that 343 can do it because they've done some great Halo stuff before, right?
Mhm.
Like the Master Chief Collection is still phenomenal.
They did a lot of great post-launch support for 5 as well.
Yeah. So I'm just, as long as I think they stay and take the advice of the player base and like listen to what people want.
Which it seems like that's what they're
Yeah,
doing.
especially with the new people on the team, like the new leaders and everything, that they're being given the time to do that, which I think will mean we have a good game at the end of this.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that's like my biggest difference is I want to play a Halo game that feels like a Halo game but modern, whereas Halo 5 to me felt modern but not like a Halo game. Whereas I think they can still strike that balance somehow. They just need to take another crack at it, you know? All right.
Sure.
Anything else to say about Halo 5, Wyatt?
I do have one thing to say that's also partially Infinite. I feel like part of the reason that people are enjoying Infinite so much is that one of the bots that you fight on the other team is called 343 Lock, and I think that people just really wanted a good excuse to beat the crap out of Spartan Lock,
That's pretty great.
and 343 gave that to them, and I think that's why people love it so much.
That's pretty great. All right, Alex, what is your guilty pleasure game recently? What's been your go-to? You sound concerned.
I had a little squeak when I was stretching. I don't know if that was picked up by the mic. I guess it's Skyrim. I'm definitely feeling a bit more guilty for playing it nowadays, even though I am no longer looking in the corner and seeing an unfinished God of War and Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Good for you.
Whereas it still feels good to play, but you know, now that I've graduated game school, oh boy, it hurts to look at because I've not on my current computer set up Nexus mods.
Oh, so you're rolling with default Skyrim right now.
Oh yeah, vanilla special
mods?
edition. No, vanilla special edition. So special edition. No,
I mean,
no
still
mods at
though.
all.
Still.
That's rough, buddy.
No mods at all.
I mean, look, I've played vanilla Skyrim
And-
before.
And to quote one of my teachers first year, we're in Browntown.
Yeah, Skyrim is a very like gray game.
Yeah.
It took the it very much took the around the 2011 time period of when it was made. It's the not just every first person shooter game there is. Every game that is released, with the exception of hyper realized things, the color palette brown.
Well, it's also one of those
Okay.
games that came out on 11/11/11, which a lot of like, it's such a it was a date a lot of games came out because I think it came out the same day as like Call of Duty, was it Modern Warfare 3 or something, and I think Battlefield came out the same day or something like that.
Because it's a fun number.
It's a
Yeah.
fun little number, yeah.
Might as well take advantage of the 11/11/11 while you can.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, I definitely. I was reminded recently of how adequate modless Skyrim is. I think I've talked about
That's
before.
a good way to put it.
Yeah, adequate.
It's quite whelming.
It does. I think it plays remarkably well on the Switch. And like,
Really?
it's the only
Really?
thing that I've talked about it. I think once or twice before. I've played some Skyrim on my Switch, and I still love the fact that you can do lock picking with the Joy-Cons. Is one of my favorite parts about that
Ooh.
game because you can like feel the clicks of the lock. It's so cool.
Oh, that's nice.
But I do think like having it on a platform like that where you don't really have the option of mods, because it's obviously like, even if the Switch had access to mods, it is not powerful enough to run incredibly modded Skyrim, right? It just can't do it.
But I was speaking with a friend about it, and I don't know how far along this is, but the second it's out, there's a mod that's it's not one of the Beyond Skyrim mods, which I had the pleasure of working on, but it's similar to, if you guys have heard about it, the cutting room floor
Yeah, I heard
mod,
about the cutting room floor.
which it adds all the content that was scrapped into the game. So it's that and a little bit more, where it just extends and elaborates on the choices that you can make and the quests that you encounter in just the story, like just the storyline for Skyrim as a base, as well as other general cutting room floor improvements. I have to see.
Yeah, I'm curious how well those would do on a platform like the Switch. 'Cause I think the biggest thing that probably let Skyrim run on the Switch is the fact that they locked it down for mods and were able to very heavily optimize everything. Because that game, like,
cut.
I've heard about that. Yeah, it runs remarkably well on Switch for being like a fully 3D first-person game with a relatively realistic art style. Even the fact that it's from 2011 aside, like Skyrim doesn't look amazing, but it is like clearly more demanding than most of the things on the Switch.
Yeah. What really gets me as a not yet hired character artist, it is definitely the the base models, the meshes for characters, they're fine. When you get into the weird area of what they do for faces and how that can be randomized on a lot of NPCs, you just see these wrinkles that don't fit the flow of the face. And it's okay, it's you look like you should have jowls, but they've been stapled to your face in a way Botox could never do.
Yeah.
It's weird things like that.
That's what I want to see. Those are like the improvements I want most in Elder Scrolls 6. Is like, forget the gameplay improvements, just make the characters look like humans.
And so like there's been there's always been one exploitable class for each Elder Scrolls game. I don't know about Arena or Daggerfall, but it's probably some.
There's always exploit. It's an RPG.
It's probably
there's
some
exploits.
Battle Mage hybrid, but there, and then there's the mage for Morrowind, or the mage for Oblivion, or the sneak archer for Skyrim. I want there to be something that makes it feel satisfying to do a sword and shield build.
Yeah, that was that was what I went for on my Switch playthrough, and the thing that struck me the most about it is that you just have you don't get anything as your character levels up. You get like a new sword, but functionally nothing is different the entire time you're playing, which just feels really bad.
I know, it's like this playthrough that I'm doing right now is the guilty pleasure one. I was trying to do a sword and shield build. So what the swords and the shields that I'm aiming to have are Dawnbreaker, which is very good against undead. Then I just like the explosion. Bad if you have Serana as a follower, because she catches on fire too.
And for some reason, I don't remember if this is fixed in the newer versions, but for a while, having Serana in your party would like nerf the damage of vampire skills and some weapons.
I heard about that.
I think it's fixed now, but that was a thing for a while. That was very startling.
There's that, and there's the Chillrend sword, which I'm looking forward to getting.
That one mod I got the last time I played is I got one where you could craft cloaks.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
The two mods the first two mods that I'm going to put in are cloaks and the bandolier.
Oh, nice.
Which is extra carrying thing, and I'm a hoarder, and I'm doing an alchemist, so there's just a bunch of potions lying around in my pockets.
I actually also remember doing a cloak mod for Witcher 3 during my first playthrough, which was actually super cool.
So
I think what we've learned here is that the real guilty pleasure with Skyrim is not playing the game; it's modding the game.
Yeah, there's
you spend more time modding it than playing.
Oh, there's the Forgotten City, which I would love to play again.
Yeah,
the Forgotten City and Falscar. While it could use some polish, it was a fun storyline, and there were some really fun, large-scale battles with a lot of NPCs, which I thought the Civil War storyline was really lacking in.
You got to give Enderwall a try if you haven't.
I have it. I do not have it downloaded yet. How is it?
It is wonderful. It's really, really cool because it's one of the few Skyrim mods that just feels like a different game.
Because it
entirely.
Is. Just using the same engine.
Yeah, they just reworked everything. And I think it stands really well on its own legs and makes a very, very unique experience. I think it's a little bit less replayable than what Skyrim is, especially the fact that it's harder to mod Enderwall than it is to mod-based Skyrim, just because it's a little bit more finicky.
From what I've heard, is it also a bit... I feel like it's a lot more linear.
At the start, yes, but it opens up as soon as you get out of the tutorial. There is more of a through line though. Like it's a game where you're much more liable to want to finish the main storyline quickly because there is like a pressing storyline at hand.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool mod.
I've done a fun thing where I've tried to put off going into both Markarth and Windhelm for as long as possible. I just do not like those cities. I don't want to do the murder mystery again.
Yep, I get that. All right. Anything else about Skyrim, Alex, that you want to talk about for your guilty pleasure time?
Not that I can think of.
Wonderful, because there's a game that came out between the last guilty pleasure episode we did and this one. And now that it's Guilty Pleasure 2 Electric Boogaloo, I feel like I need to mention a game that's going to make all of us just kind of scrunch up into angry little balls as soon as I mention the name, and that is Marvel's Avengers.
Oh. Well, you were right.
So this is a game that I think barely qualifies as a Guilty Pleasure game because it's not good. It is not a good game.
It's guilty.
It is the guiltiest of guilty pleasures.
But a good guilty pleasure game is a game that you know is bad, but you enjoy for some reason, though.
Yeah, but I think the definition of guilty pleasure has changed because there are so many games now that hit at least the 6 to 7 out of 10 range of this is a fun game, just maybe lacking in some areas. That's where I'd put Dynasty Warriors generally, is in that range of it doesn't have the best progression system or the most interesting story, but it's got some fun smack 1,000 people with a sword. Marvel's Avengers has some fun smack 1,000 robots with some different characters. Now the problem is everything else about that game.
Own battle pass.
Everything else about that game is horrid. It just doesn't work. It's not fun. But playing through the story and being able to smack a bunch of enemies around with the characters and seeing them explode is just satisfying on a nice level. Now, that falls apart as soon as you try to do anything that isn't the main story. Because the game is balanced roughly. It does not work super well. And the progression systems have become extremely difficult to use and just not very fun. There's cool abilities for all the characters buried in these trees of skills, except you don't get the fun skills unless you play the game for 60 hours. So it's got some major issues, but I do think it's a good game that seeing as it's consistently on sale for less than $20 at this point, if you want to play a game where you can go around as the Hulk and beat some people up, you could do better, but it probably won't look as good. You could go play the Incredible Hulk game from 2011, but at least in this one you also get Iron Man. And Iron Man's got some cool stuff where he can flip an enemy around and then blast him in the back. He's got some neat moves.
Is it still really buggy?
It's a lot better now. At least but I am playing on a PS5, so there is the fair mark of like, I don't think the PS5 is going to struggle too much at anything that game throws at it.
Well, also, wasn't the PS5 version of it done by like a different studio? That's like
I don't think the PS5
really
version
good.
is actually out yet, to my knowledge. I think I'm playing the PS4.
No, but like the upgrade.
enhanced.
I know that there's a PS5 upgrade.
Yeah, I don't think it's out yet.
That was done by. Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's in progress. I think they said it was coming soon.
I thought I had heard something about if they have like a really like reputable studio that's working on the port that is like known for doing really good like versions and stuff like that.
I think you're right. I just don't think it's out yet. From my knowledge, it might be different at this point because I haven't played it in a good month or two. But as of the last I played, it was just playing the PS4 version on my PS5.
And it was pretty okay.
Yeah, it runs at least towards 60. I think there were one or two slowdowns, but nothing major that made me go like, "Oh, I'm not having fun," which was a huge problem with the PS4 version. Even my PS4 Pro is that it did
not. The PS4 version still gives me nightmares.
Yeah, it gave me like I don't get motion sickness. Like I can play VR games that are fully moving around and not get motion sickness. That game gave me motion sickness because of the motion blur.
It was sickening. It was legitimately
because there's a VOD up of Wyatt and I playing Avengers and having just a horrible time the entire time. We didn't even figure out how to play together.
we couldn't do it. We couldn't figure it out. It just wouldn't work. It was oh god.
Yeah, it was really, really rough as a game. And it still is pretty rough, but if you find it on sale for like less than $20 and are just really wanting to go smack some enemies around and have a fun time with some like Marvel superheroes,
I feel like that would almost make me more sad though. Like if I played it and I enjoyed like the single player aspect of it, and then it just makes me think like, oh, if only the whole game was like this.
You want a good Marvel superhero game? Spider-Man.
I mean, look.
Well, Spider-Man, is not a guilty pleasure game because that game is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Both of them
It's probably one of the best PS4.
Yeah, Miles Morales is a great PS5 game. So
I just finished it. Good. It was like I was hearing. It felt like it's a lot shorter. I still think there's the entire city to go around in, which is still fun.
Still tons of stuff to do. Swinging around is never going to get old.
Though I will say the most fun that I had in that game so far was walking around the Science Museum.
Yep, there's tons of areas where like I love it, especially Miles Morales does a lot of this. You can walk around the environment in Harlem and like random characters will talk to you and like talk about Miles and just be like, "Hey, Miles, it's cool to see you." If you're in the sections where you're playing not with your spider suit on. But yeah, stuff like that is really, really cool. It's very, very fun. But
that's not
Avengers has none of that.
So get it out of here.
Avengers has none of that.
Yeah.
But it does.
It doesn't even have a Spider-Man yet. And most of you won't
probably won't.
Less of them.
Somehow I doubt Spider-Man's going to end up in that game. But I do think if you are the kind of person who wants to see like, because it has a good combat system at its core, it's just hampered by this like looter shooter balancing of wanting to just have increasing numbers be the balance, and that doesn't work with a melee action game because it just feels bad when you hit an enemy and nothing happens, right? It doesn't follow the same rules of a shooter where you can, like in a shooter, if you have good visual effects and feedback, you can make shooting a boss for like 30,000 clips pretty fun. Whereas with a melee game, there's a much thinner line of like, am I hitting this enemy? Are they reacting? Does it feel like I have weight to my strikes? I think it's really, really hard to hit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's why the sword in Destiny is a power weapon, because you need it to delete people or else it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem that game has, aside from, the whole looter shooter system being horrid and a bad idea. But it does make me a little bit optimistic that the Guardians of the Galaxy game is going to be a good experience.
I am very excited for that.
I loved how they were very subtle, but also very clear that this is a single player. This is a single player story driven game. We swear.
Yeah. we swear we've learned something. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that game, and I do think like if you want that Marvel's that Marvel character fix in an action game. Like, I think your options right now are you could go to Injustice for DC to get your DC fix. You could play Marvel vs. Capcom, go back 10 years, play that. It's still a great game. Or you can go play Ultimate Alliance 3, which is, all right, but it doesn't feel that great. So you don't have a lot of choices with Marvel characters in games yet. Maybe that'll change, but as of now, all of them are not that great. And, I'd probably choose Ultimate Alliance 3 over Avengers on most days.
I'd pick Contest of Champions.
Didn't that game shut down?
No, it's still going. I'm seeing updates for it.
Oh, neat. Oh, I think I'm thinking of the DC game, not the Marvel one. But yeah,
Injustice?
Not Injustice. There was like a DC
What
MOBA
was it
for a
called?
while.
Yeah, it was like a team clicker thing, right?
It was wild. I don't remember the name of it.
The pricing on that was I remember being ridiculous.
It no longer exists. I know that for a fact because I watched a video about it.
I am not surprised.
But yeah, that is a game that I don't think any of us remember. But yeah, that's been, it's kind of akin to like a Dynasty Warriors where it's just mindless fun, except in Dynasty Warriors, your mindless fun is surrounded by some cool supporting systems and like a goofy story that encourages you to keep going, and lots of cool character choices and like tons of different movesets. Whereas
so it's almost the inverse of Avengers, where it has like a much better core to it, but literally everything else around it is kind of garbage.
Well, it's not even garbage. It's just like they're not trying to do anything better. They know their limitations very well and aren't trying to get that creative unless you're playing like Hyrule Warriors, which does get pretty bonkers. You're not going to see something too crazy.
Well, Age of Calamity almost its own thing.
Age of Calamity and the original Hyrule Warriors are both super unique compared to other Warriors games.
Yeah.
I think they still have the coolest like supporting systems of like, I don't know if you ever played Hyrule Warriors, the OG one, where you had like the maps that you could go do and like fill out this weird adventure map and get items and do this classic like Zelda style adventure where you'd go and do different challenges. And there were like 20 of them, and each of them takes like 50 hours to complete, and they're legitimately good content too. They're not bad. So if you want your money's worth out of an action game, go get Hyrule Warriors. that's gonna fill you up.
The action to dollar ratio works in your favor,
and it's much higher quality than Avengers. Which is a little weird to say that a Warriors game is much higher quality than a Marvel Avengers game, but it is. And Samurai Warriors 5 just came out. I haven't tried it, but I've heard good things from people that have played it. So good to see Warriors is still going strong, and I think they're going to go strong for a very long time. All right, who else has something else they want to talk about? Wow.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it.
Not necessarily a console game, and was like very almost forgotten about since Flash is dead. Was taken out and back. Happy Wheels.
Wow, that is a blast from the past.
Wow.
That is a game. That is a name I would not have thought uttered in the year 2021.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Heard that name in years.
Good guilty pleasure pick, though. Why don't you describe what Happy Wheels is for people that haven't played it, which might be a fair amount of the audience at this point.
That just made you sound even old. That made you sound even older.
Well, you can't play it now, so even if you're like.
With every reference we make, varicose veins show up on my body.
But the YouTube videos are there. The YouTube videos will always exist.
Yeah, they don't.
You can still play Happy Wheels.
Really?
As soon as I remembered it, not that I wasn't paying attention to the podcast. I love your voices. I'm playing it right now. I am playing it right now, albeit it has a frame rate of 19.
Wonderful. That is just what I want for my Flash games.
Yeah, but it's essentially a ragdoll-esque What is a
like
good way? You
Blood Trials type platformer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A ragdoll esque things like it's like Kick the Buddy, I guess, with an even more dated mobile game reference.
Wow, you're making it so much worse, Alex.
No, but you know what? That works.
It's
I
a
like
good
that.
comparison.
I like that.
It's like that, and people can make courses, and some of them are really, really cool, high quality things with storylines. And oh god, there are sequels to levels that people have made. They're notorious content creators, and there's just an endless sea of bottle runs or bottle throws or glass break levels. Ugh.
I will say there are some like
Um,
legitimately cool challenges in Happy Wheels, from what I remember.
Oh yeah.
Like the level design at some points can be very good.
Oh, incredibly so. I Some of the people who made levels have a future as a game designer if they are not already.
Yeah, many of them. I'm betting a fair few are people that do it as their day job, and we're just like, let me relax with this. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, it's that. It's like a very gruesome ragdoll. Even well, you can turn blood and gore on and off, but like, you can be pedaling and still mounted to your bike with both of your legs gone, or detached from your body. There's really weird rubber bandy physics that are fun to mess with that I've seen on one of the characters that's a pogo guy where his spinal cord is just like a rubber band. If you hit him right, his head will not quite come off. It's so weird.
Very brutal.
It's so Flash game.
There's different like characters on vehicles. Well, there's a guy on a bike with his kid. There's a woman on a bike with two kids. One in the handlebar basket. There's motorcycles, segways, Santa, pogo stick. There's some guy in a helicopter chair too, I think.
Well, that's
There's
new.
a dad and his kid on a bike.
That's the classic.
That's
Yeah.
the classic. Well, I thought the classic was the homeless guy in the wheelchair.
I think
Isn't
both.
that-
of them
Oh,
are.
that's right.
I'm pretty
That's
sure
like the
there were like
original.
4 or 5 at the start, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you see everyone playing as I guess his name is now Irresponsible Dad, which yeah, you'd have to be.
Yeah,
Um,
fits.
Oh my god, every level is a death trap for that child in the back seat.
Yep. All right. Anything else to say about Happy Wheels, Alex?
Before we start feeling a little.
Or did you
too
just want to
old.
remind us that it existed?
Pretty
And
much
that you can still play it.
You can still play it.
That's the most surprising thing to me, is that game still is around.
It also has a mobile version.
Of course it does. All right. Wyatt, you got something?
Now that your past has been sufficiently blasted.
Yeah, another shooter, because what else do I talk about, right? I want to talk about Battlefield 5 a little bit. I feel like I have already, but I mean, there's no other perfect time to talk about it than Guilty Pleasures, because that is truly what I feel.
Battlefield 5 is great, because I can't talk about Battlefield 5. I don't play
No,
it, so.
I keep wanting you to a little bit, at least just before 2042.
I think I have it now from the... Didn't it go...
Oh, yeah.
Or is that Battlefield 1?
You have it. You have it on Game Pass.
Oh, that would explain it.
Yeah. It's a bit of a hefty install, but I do want to get your take on it because I am genuinely curious. But yeah, Halo 5. Another example.
Battlefield 5, you mean?
Yeah. Oh my god. That's how old I am. I'm already becoming senile. Anyway.
What's that, Sonny?
No. Battlefield 5. Another game that is the most recent entry in its in the franchise, and is one that people really, the fan base as a whole, really didn't like, and that I still kind of do. And it's interesting too, and the reason I feel so much guilt is because I've been going back and playing Battlefield 4 recently. I feel like a lot of people have, with 2042 coming out and it being very reminiscent of 4. And I gotta be honest with you, maybe it's just because the servers on 4 are all just like, if you're looking for anything more specific than Conquest, a lot of the servers just get really weird, and there's no like basic vanilla like rush servers or something like that. But I don't have nearly as much fun with 4 as I have with 5. Like, there was a span 3 or 4 months ago where I was playing a lot of Battlefield 5. Like, it was the only thing I was playing for a while, and I really enjoyed myself. And then I went back to 4, and I just wasn't feeling it nearly as much. And I feel bad because I know deep down in my heart that Battlefield 4 is a better game in almost every single way. But I don't know. I just there's a lot of things that they did in 5 that I really, really like. Both Brett and I were talking about this, and we both agreed on this, which is even more crazy. But movement and game feel is fantastic. They have the game feels like pretty quick, which I like quite a bit. They have so many great like specifically with movement. So for instance, you can grab on the ledges that are like well above your head, which just gives you so many awesome just mobility options and ways to enter buildings and stuff like that. And whenever I go back to a game that doesn't have the height that you can climb to, it's always super annoying, and the maps just feel a lot less interesting as a result. They have a mechanic where if you hit crouch when you hit the ground from falling high up, you do a roll, and it breaks a lot of the fall damage that you get. The crouch sprinting is really cool. You can sprint while in crouch. It's not as fast, but it keeps your head down. So if you're trying to keep your head down during a firefight, you can kind of run along like a destroyed building or something and still protect yourself somewhat. All the changes to the squad mechanics I think are great. Like, if you're a medic, you can hand a med pack off to someone that has full health, and there's a dedicated button where you can just use the med pack when you're hit. So you don't have to constantly baby people and throw health packs out there, which is great. Or if you're like dickhead medic isn't paying attention, not healing anyone, you can just walk over and hold E and then grab a med pack from him. You know, if he's not doing his job properly, it's not as ideal as him handing it out to you and throwing it out or whatever, but it's still there, which is really nice. It's also nice if you're a support or a medic that you can just press one button and give yourself ammo and health without having to throw it out in front of you and then pick it up. It seems like such a small thing, but it's such a nice change that keeps the pace of the match going. You know, it's those little changes to movement that I absolutely love, that just like it just keeps the game moving at a much faster pace. And not just in terms of like everyone's running around like chickens with their head cut off, but it feels like there's no downtime because they've cut a lot of the downtime out, which is great. They've also like kind of cut ammo count to a lot of the weapons, so you have to rely on your support buddies a lot more. But what's also nice is they've scattered little like ammo and health stashes at every base, which makes the bases much more enticing to capture because you have something to gain from it other than just battle points or whatever they're called, or tickets, I should say. I don't know. There's a lot of small changes that they made that I just think are great, and the game feels great to play. And yes, so many bugs, just so many bugs, and balance is wonky and all over the place, and the battle pass sucks, and it's really, really rough. But I think there's just so many awesome little changes that they made that just make me want to play it more. And it's the one I always go back to. Whenever I want my Battlefield kick, I play 5, which is insane because no one plays 5. But here we are.
In the year of our Battlefield 5?
In the year of our Battlefield 5. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy that I prefer playing a Battlefield game that has very little that has very few rush servers. That's how much I like it, because Rush by far and away is my favorite mode. And I can play Rush exclusively without playing anything else.
Huh.
And it barely, because it didn't even have Rush officially. It ran it very briefly for a little while as like a test, and then they never actually had it as a game mode. That's how much of a mess that's how much of a mess Battlefield 5 is. They didn't even have Rush officially for very long. It's crazy.
That's wild.
So I'm sure if Brett was here, I'm sure if he's listening or if he ever listens, Brett, you're probably quaking in your boots right now, and I feel sorry for you, but I mean it. I mean every word I'm saying right now.
All right. Hey, Wyatt, I have another game that Brett's going to hate me for saying that I play on this podcast.
I feel like that's what this has become. This has become Brett's
personal hell.
Brett's personal hell. Yeah.
Aw.
Hey, you guys did it to me. It's only fair.
Brett probably
It's
enjoys
only
a
fair.
good... I feel like Brett would enjoy a good Dynasty Warriors if he ever played them. I don't know if he has, but I will say, I know a game that Brett has played, and a game that Brett doesn't really like, and that's called WWE 2K19. So for those following the saga of this podcast, Brett reintroduced wrestling to me, and I ended up actually enjoying myself. And so I picked up the cheapest WWE game on sale, which happened to be 2K19, which, for those wondering, is now like the only good one that you can get. And by good, it is relative, because it's still like a guilty pleasure game. That game's like a solid 6 out of 10, but because it's the only wrestling game like it, you don't really have other options. There's really nothing else you can go to. The great thing is, WWE's been on this crazy streak of releasing every single talented person in their company. All right? They're getting rid of them all for some reason. No one knows. They say it's budget cuts. In reality, it's probably big Vince going, I don't like you because you don't have insane muscles, so get out of my company. That's probably what's happening. And they're all going over to AEW. But WWE 2K19 came out right before any of these cuts started happening. So it now has the golden roster of WWE games. It has everyone. It's got all the big names, all the people that are now at other companies, aren't in WWE games. It's got all the people that don't just look like big buff guys hitting each other, who actually have like gimmicks and stuff, you know, the part that makes wrestling fun to watch and not just UFC. So that game's fun to play if you're into wrestling. It probably isn't fun to play if you're not. And it looks incredibly insane most of the time. It doesn't look great for a lot of it, but occasionally something will look very smooth and cool. And it's those moments that make it worth playing. It's fun. It is definitely not a great game, but it's fun.
Hey, that's what this episode is all about, baby.
There is the jankiest part of this game, and why I think this is going to personally drive you very angry.
Uh-oh.
There's this thing called universe mode, which is a very cool concept where you get
Universe
to like
mode.
Because the thing with wrestling is it's all fake, right? It's all a storyline. So the fun part is booking things. It's making the fights between different people and like creating a storyline. It's not just the fights, right? Who wins doesn't matter. It's whether or not that story in the fight is cool.
It's the drama.
Yeah, it's the drama of it. That's fun. It's like a soap opera. So universe mode is designed to cater to that, where you get to create different shows and like make your own little wrestling universe of people fighting each other.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's a cool concept, and it mostly works really well. But there is one thing that drives me insane, and it's that there are these things called promos that will happen during episodes, if you put them in, where a wrestler will call out another wrestler and be like, hey, I don't like you. We're going to fight next week, right? Build hype for the next match. However, it's really awkward because there's no like proper text boxes in this game. And obviously, they can't voice act 100 wrestlers, right? It's just not feasible, and they don't have enough care or attention to voice act it. So it's completely silent.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Completely silent is the first thing. The second thing is that instead of text boxes, it's just like slightly transparent gray borders that like cover up parts of the screen so you can read the like default. It looks like default fungus text in Unity if anyone's ever used fungus.
Oh no!
It looks like that.
And does it have the super satisfying fungus?
No,
like,
it has
sound?
no noise. Nothing. Complete silence.
Oh,
all right,
God.
with a character walking around on the stage mouthing things.
No.
All right, so that's the first part, which that could still be fun, you know, because then you can voice act it if you're doing it yourself and you want to like make a YouTube video or something. You can voice act it yourself. Sure, fine. Now the problem is this minigame apparently revolves around timing. So there's a minigame to promos where you have to like select the response to the other person because it's a fight. Well, what'll happen is another wrestler will sometimes come out on the stage, and then like you'll start having a word battle, right? With like a winner's bar and everything of like how the conversation's going. So someone wins the promo, right? But it requires you to like pick of these options and make like a cohesive narrative over this thing that's happening. But it relies slightly on timing, where like they say you get bonus points for timing it towards the end of a response, but it's not voice acted. So it's super hard to time anything. Plus some of them are very long. So you need to read them before you can click on like your one of three options. And even then it does the classic Mass Effect thing where sometimes there'll be a thing where like it says, oh, I'm going to say this. And then you press that and you actually say something completely different. Right? It's infuriating.
Oh.
It is because it's such a cool idea, right? It's such a neat little mini game idea for a wrestling game to have these like battles in speech of who's going to fight who. And then it just like falls apart. It does not work at the level I think they want it to, which is a shame because it could be really cool, but it just is extremely awkward.
It does seem like a lot of the issues comes from like a big roster, and so they can't really pull it off.
Well, the thing, like, I'm just like, why would you make it timing based, right? I don't care that there's not voice acting. It does obviously make it a little bit less fun when you don't hear people's voices, but it does mean
and I've never watched wrestling, but I'm going to assume a lot of it is like personality based.
Yeah,
like you want to follow your guy.
That's the entire thing, right?
Or whatever. But like, once everything's in text, a lot of that like personality is taken away, and you're just reading text.
And it's a trade-off because it does mean there are a lot more options. Like I haven't seen a repeated one yet, and I've done quite a few, which is cool because they're long. They're like speeches, so they're pretty lengthy, and they're all different, which is great. But the issue is just that they don't function. It's not a functional minigame to the way they think it is, especially because it's like a winner and a loser that you don't get to pick. So basically, my experience has been whenever I play this minigame, I'm just going to lose for no reason that I can discernibly tell. Which is strange because like when you're doing the universe mode, you can pick who you're playing in that thing. So it doesn't make sense, right? That it has the win and loss states because it means you now can't drive the conversation in a way you want to because they're turning it into this weird like mini game. And I honestly think like just having it be a dialogue tree would have been a little bit better. That and it just looks super low budget, which is the biggest part of it. Like it looks very test visuals, not like things you would see in a released game. Which is again strange because like the animations of them walking around and talking are fine, but the actual text boxes are just very amateur. Which is again weird because the rest of the UI in that game is pretty good. So I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. All right, that's a good mix of games, I think. Unless someone has another game they want to bring up to end us on. Nope. All right, great, good. Look, I was going to talk about another game here, but I think it's better saved. I'm going to give it a shout out here, but I don't think it's actually a guilty pleasure game. There's a little game called Gujian 3 on Steam. I don't know if anyone else has seen this game because it is a Chinese game.
I've never heard of it.
It's a very popular franchise in China. The third one is the first one that's gotten an English translation. And I picked it up because it was $5 on sale. And I was like, I like RPGs. This looks like a cool anime RPG type deal. I played it. That game is really good. Like,
what is it? An anime RPG-esque game?
You can look it up. Gujian 3, Gugian 3. It doesn't look. It looks anime, but not in like the art style as anime. It's just anime because everyone teleports and like fights with flashy swords. So that's why it looks anime. But it feels very much like a Trails or Tales of, not a Trails game, where it's like very action heavy. You're running around. You have tons of different progression systems. You get like an island and you can farm. And I'm a big sucker for any game that has an island that I can farm on. So that's great. But of course, because it's this bonkers Chinese game, you can, when you're farming, run around as a golden squirrel and do mini games, which is great. The combat system is very fluid and fun. It's got cool dungeons. There's party members. The worst part about it is that the story comes off a little bit stilted because the translation is pretty good, but it's translated pretty matter-of-factly. So sometimes things are very wordy and don't quite come across super well. And obviously, like, not a huge budget went to the translation, so there's not English voice acting. You're stuck with the Chinese voice acting, which is actually pretty good. But it's a language you have to get used to hearing because of how the intonation works.
As long as there is one language of voice acting, that's good, honestly.
Yeah, it is like fully voice acted. Like, I don't think I've found an unvoice acted line. It's got a bonkers cool city and whatnot you can explore. The premise is crazy. There's tons of really cool stuff in that game, and I think it's the kind of game that's super hard to find out about if you're not just super looking for this weird RPG. And it's got some really cool systems. It's a very interesting game. Although figuring out how to launch it was pretty crazy, because when you launch it on Steam, it brings up two options that are both completely in Chinese. Turns out, it doesn't really matter which one you pick, it just changes whatever the region your save data is stored in. So that doesn't really matter, but apparently
Weird.
my save data is now stored in China and not North America because I picked the wrong one, but oh well.
Oh.
It doesn't make a difference as far as I can tell.
Bum, bum, bah.
I've not noticed any problems, so I think it's fine. But yeah, I might end up doing some streams of that game because it's really wild and very fun. So it is an interesting game to talk about in a Guilty Pleasure episode because it is the kind of thing where I'm like, this game is really hard to recommend because of the fact that it's a very unique experience that's hard to place among other things. Whereas like, I think the best I could do is like a Witcher 3 mixed with a JRPG kind of deal.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild. Like you play as
That
multiple
sounds interesting.
characters too. There's like a whole starting prologue where you're playing as a different guy, and then you end up playing as the actual character. And the animations are really, really good for the most part.
Sorry, what was it called again? Guji?
Guji 3. I'll send you a link to it afterwards. But yeah, it pops up on sale quite often. Very unique game that I think it's neat that we now get to play all these games that we would never be exposed to. Because it's not the kind of game that I can put it neatly in a box, because it's like Chinese games are super rare in the West because of the fact that like the language barrier is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of Chinese companies don't need to cater to Western audiences because there are more than enough customers in mainland China for them to make their money back. So why put the effort into the localization? But they did, and it is really fun. So that's been a good experience. All right. With that, I think we've mostly done it. We've run through our loop. And you guys know what that means? We got to give shout-outs.
At some point, I'm going to literally shout out my shout out, but I've never gotten a noise complaint before, and I kind of want to keep it that way. So,
well, to give you time to think of your shout out, Alex, why don't you give a shout out?
Okay. My shout out is to the God of War combat and how just
Quality.
amazingly crunchy it feels with whatever weapon you use. But it's so fun. And it feels so good. And I finally got the hang of it. And right as I got the hang of it, I decided, I can't really go through the endless bit or this roguelike area of it for too long. So I'm going to switch over to Miles Morales. And it is entirely different.
Yep.
I
Could be
keep
an
on,
adjustment.
I keep on web slinging instead of punching enemies. And it's still a good control system once you get used to it. Well, some of the Venom move layouts are a little strange and hard to remember, but it's still just as tactile to play. I guess I'll describe it as.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Wyatt, are you ready?
Yeah, I've been replaying Borderlands 3 with a buddy recently in co-op, and just shout out to the way they throw guns at you with reckless abandon. All guns that are super unique and interesting and cool looking. Every game in Borderlands 3 is like a Destiny exotic, and it's kind of great. So I just love how writing aside, I just love how just they don't care and they just throw whatever. They literally have a gun that shoots guns.
Wait, I gotta ask you, have you tried the arms race mode yet?
No, I want to. I don't have all the DLC. I have like the Western themed one that I've been meaning to try because I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, the arms race one is one of the. I think it's
That's
the
like
new.
their weird like battle royale mode.
Yeah, it's their like single player battle royale where you run around, all your guns get taken away. You start at level like 0, and you have to run through and get new loot and like use whatever guns you find to fight.
Mhm.
It's super fun, and there are some really really cool weapons you can get from that. I got one that like when you shoot spawns miniature guns that fly around your head that shoot enemies. There's some very fun stuff.
I'm assuming it's a TDR weapon.
Yeah, it was like a corrupted
sounds like
TDR weapon.
Sounds like a TDR, yeah.
And it's cool because it's a good way to get some like weird weapons reliably at any level, which is fun. Like you have access to an area you can go to, play like a round of that, and then get a nice weapon set up for your current level just by doing that.
Also, just shout out to the Borderlands 2 character Face McShooty, by far the best video game character.
Yep, wonderful. All right, I gotta give a shout out to a little game called Orcs Must Die 3.
Oh, okay.
That came out recently. It came out a year ago on Stadia, but of course nobody played it, so it just came out on Steam. And it's more Orcs Must Die, which is exactly what I wanted. It's very fun to just go murder a bunch of orcs with lots of traps. It's great. I wish there were more good third-person tower defense games you get to run around and do things in. It's a genre that I really enjoy, but there is like Orcs Must Die and Dungeon Defenders, and Dungeon Defenders right now is not very good. So it's in a rough place. All right, with that, we've hit the end of the show. As always, thank you for listening. You can catch the show Tuesdays 7 a.m. on the podcast platform of your choice, or on YouTube if you want to see our lovely faces. You can also now support the channel by going to the Twitch and subbing. You know, we won't get it for a while because you need to have there's a limit before you actually are able to take out your Twitch earnings. So we'll hit that maybe at some point. I don't know, probably in like 6 months. But you know,
You start today.
we start now.
We're gonna start every episode now begging for subs. Look,
if you do want to directly support the podcast, that subbing to the YouTube channel and the checking out the Twitch channel are the best ways to do that as of right now.
Sure.
Of course, we do
I've
this.
been a fool. Aspen Gold. Okay.
Yep. You
gotta get it in there.
Gold.
You gotta get it in there.
As always, we do just do this for fun though. So don't feel obligated, but it is there if you wish to support us. As always, have a good evening, morning, night, day, time, wherever you are, and we will see you next week.
Bye. I don't know if the outro's playing.
Yeah, the outro's playing. Let's see here. We gotta play the outro.
Our slapping outro
Da 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 da.
that no one except Ryan can hear.
I'll figure out how to let you guys hear it at some point.
That'd be wonderful. I miss it.